coordination of today's meeting. And so welcome everybody. And we're gonna dive right into our PowerPoint. And I hope our fearless leader, Lisa, will be on shortly so she can help me out with this. Now, can you see that? Yes, excellent. So we are going to be let in on the super duper knowledge of all those people who went to that week-long training on trauma. And so this is going to be a critical meeting. Pay attention and have fun. And I can advance my slides. There we go. Housekeeping, Kurt and Lisa. Okay, so it's important to for you to keep you can't see that, can you? It doesn't look like anything. There you go. Mute microphones, but keep your cameras on. This was instruction from Lori, and I also heard it from Lisa. So please keep your cameras on as possible. If you don't have a camera or a mic, that's understandable, but please do keep your cameras on, but mute your microphones. It's in your participation list there on Zoom. You can see whether your name is showing up instead of, for instance, just iPhone or Betty's iPad. You can see whether your name is being listed there. And that participant list is what I download to tell me who attended the meeting. And so it's just important that you make sure Zoom knows who you are. But the more important thing is that you fill out the training acknowledgement at the end of the meeting. It's due to me by the end of the day tomorrow. And just because it's easier if you just get it done, get it out of the way, start filling it out as soon as the meeting is over, and just email it to me or give it to your supervisor. But that training acknowledgement questionnaire is required of every single person. That includes Lisa and Lori, because Lori's gonna have to watch this, you know, because she's not here. And that means she's gonna have to watch the recording. I hope I'm recording. Moving down the housekeeping list, I think we had a great hoedown, yeah? I was so fortunate to get a massive seismic migraine about 2.5 hours before. Lori had to drive me home because I couldn't see and my brain exploded, so I missed it. Does anybody have anything they want to share about the hoedown? I personally want to say thank you to the different departments for all of that you did. Thank you to Cami and admissions for the decorations. Thank you for the great gifts, Lisa, and thank you for helping to set up. I think that was Erica's team. I can't remember what everybody did, but thank you for everything that you did to make the hoedown great. Anybody want to say anything about the hoedown?
Kurt, you know so much. We started hay bales on fire and people were leaping over them. It was great.
I'm not gonna believe you right now.
Yeah, well, there was like fire and dancing and.
Oh man, I know there's dancing and I missed that.
So good. The food was so good. I'm still dreaming about it.
That's what I hear.
And those prizes were the best.
The food was good.
Those prizes were the best? Is that what you said, Heather?
Yeah, even though I didn't win any, I thought those were the best prizes ever given.
Woohoo.
Yeah, I thought it was a setup. Did you see all those kids wiping us out? The kids were taking all.
All right, moving on. Just really quickly, I want to mention on the website, if you go to www.houseofhope.ut.org/staff, I now have everybody's picture except for about 4 or 5 people, and you'll see who you are. Now I need your biographies. So if you click on Lisa, or if you click on Lori, if you click on Rourke, if you click on me, you'll see our biographies pop up. I don't need, mine is the longest of anyone's because I'm all about me, but I don't need that much, just a paragraph of a short history, and then just, something a little bit about your hobbies. And then I always like to end with why you work at House of Hope, or goals that you want to accomplish at House of Hope, or just something about how great House of Hope is. So if you'll please email me your biographies, I'll get those up on that website. Something that I didn't include in the PowerPoint presentation, but Lisa asked me to bring up, we have a lot of people who are clocking in and out on their iPhones or iPads. It is House of Hope policy that you clock in from a House of Hope computer. And remember, you can come right in. There's a extra computer at the reception desk if you need to quickly punch in. There's a computer at every house, but you need to be clocking in and clocking out on our computers, not on your iPhones or your iPads. Got that? Excellent. So I didn't
I
include
have
that
a
in.
question.
Yes?
Okay, Kurt, at the houses, there's like 3 iPads at every house. So when a staff comes in, we just hand them an iPad and they clock in on that.
Okay, just to clarify, you can clock in on an agency iPad.
Okay.
It's just on your own iPad. So let's clarify that. So we have those addresses and they're in our system, but we're seeing people clock in at a different location on their iPhone. So they're not quite there yet, or they're in the driveway. You have to come in the house and use one of the iPads or our computers. So I appreciate you clarifying that. If it's an agency iPad, you can use that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for the question and clarification. Going down our list of housekeeping, it's time to welcome new staff. And introducing Liesel Hansen, who is a therapy intern here in the Salt Lake office. Welcome, Liesel. I know I saw you log in, so I know you're here. We're super excited to have you here. I've never met Riley, but she is our recovery assistant in Provo and just started within the last 2 months. So we want to welcome Riley to our House of Hope team. Also, Justine, who I got to know a little bit during her new hire orientation. She's a Salt Lake City recovery assistant, and I really enjoyed getting to know her, and you will too as you start to work with her. Melinda Kendall is a child development specialist over at the Hope Center. Melinda's worked, Lisa, do you want to say, she's worked with us for many years in different capacities, and she just loves working with the infants. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, she actually started a few months before I did. So we worked together for 20 years and then she moved on. But whenever in the summers, she often comes back just to help us in different areas. So she taught me a lot of what I know about. I came from mental health. And so she taught me a lot for a lot of years about SUD side of it. So I'm happy that she's helped us out this summer.
Yeah, I hope you're on, Melinda, and can see us welcome you back. And Brittany Peterson, a recovery assistant in Salt Lake City, also started relatively not too long ago. I want to welcome Brittany to our team. We're getting Katrina's team really rounded out now, I think. And another child development specialist, Lyra Gills, over at the Hope Center. I'm not sure, Lisa, she worked with the toddlers or the infants?
She works with all ages.
So she works with all the groups, and welcome, Lyra. I enjoyed meeting you as well during your new hire orientation. And Rihanna. Rihanna is Margaret's assistant, so she's our development assistant. She works in Margaret's office with her. You can poke in and say hi. She's not today, she's out of the office today, but welcome to our team, Rihanna. And another recovery assistant in Provo that I haven't personally met, Brinley. But if you're on Brinley, we want to welcome you. And Sarah Puj Holzman is our dietetic intern. You might have seen her cooking downstairs or just downstairs with Hannah. She is currently at the University of Utah working toward her degree. And so she's been shadowing and working with Hannah as a dietetic intern. Welcome, Sarah. And I believe this is our last new staff member, Taylor. Taylor is a weekend recovery assistant at the houses. And so I'm not sure if she's with us today or not, but either way, she'll see the recording. Welcome, Taylor. And so we've hired quite a few people since our last meeting, and I'm really happy about that. Our staff is, including interns, we're at about 90 people in total, all of us together as one great big happy team.
So Kurt, who takes those pictures?
Kirt takes them now. He didn't used to.
Because those are some good pictures. Those are much better than the Polaroids when I got my picture taken. So if somebody wants a retake, can they come to you and get a retake?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to.
Because those pictures are very impressive.
I found a nice good spot out in front of the building where I can get 2 or 3 construction workers in it. And
Great.
yeah.
Great.
So it is time. I'm going to turn the time over to Lisa to do our hoodie ceremony and anniversaries.
Okay, first, before we do that, I just want to do, oh, you want me to do 1 year first? Okay, I'll do 1 year first.
Okay.
So it's amazing how the first year here just flies by. It seems like it's 3 weeks. Just kidding. Sometimes the first year here can seem like it's 10 years, but I think all the people would agree that have been here that you learn more in 1 year here than you learn almost doing anything else in your life in 1 year, because it's such a great learning opportunity. So I know I learned more 1 year here than I learned 10 years working in mental health. So it's a great place to get a lot of knowledge in a short amount of time. So we have 5 people that are hitting their 1 year: Nicole, Angela, Allie, Eden, and Cassidy. Are there others I can't see?
No, those 5.
Those 5, okay. And so do you have the
the poem?
can you put that on the screen, or do you want me to pull it up?
I don't have it on the screen.
Okay.
I can read it, or I can.
No, I can pull it up. It's actually famous. I got it in a collection of 18th century American poetry. Let's see. So just 1 second, and I will. We'll pull it right up here. Or do you have it up? You can just send it to me.
Yeah, 1 sec.
I put in early Victorian poetry of the Americas, and nothing came up. Oh, okay, perfect. Okay. So because Margaret's been, since our COVID outbreak here and Margaret's been out, I'll make sure that she gets these hoodies to you guys, because we have some special hoodies that if you have one, you know that they are, they definitely have magical powers. And so, yeah, I think where it says 2002, I think you mean 2001 is when they started. So I think what Kirt means is the dates, that's when they hit their 1 year. Okay, so since I can't give you a hoodie in person and do a hoodie ceremony, this will just have to do. So I'll read this poetry from the early Americas. It's called You're Celebrating 1 Year at House of Hope. You've changed, you've grown, you're looking older. You seem much wiser, healthier, bolder. You've been at House of Hope a year, but it seems like you've always been here. So we honor you the best way we could with the one and only House of Hope hood, E. Once you've worked here, you will find something has changed in your heart and mind. It wasn't easy, you've cursed and cried, but you made it through. You endured and thrived. You made mistakes which you had to repair. You had to learn to trust the process here. You've had the help of your trusty team. Now a year has passed just like a dream. That's because nothing would rhyme with nightmare. Now, as you go forward in the life you choose, there's something you will never lose. It's the laughs, it's the tears, it's the client's face. When she finds her truth, nothing can replace. The feeling that there's something greater than you, a spirit of hope, a long-term view. Now, you may move on in a year or two, but House of Hope will never leave you. No, you won't forget, for you are stronger, and we hope you'll be with us much longer. But a part of you will always be here where you worked and grew for the whole last year. Now you say what you've learned and make it sound wise. Per ardua surgo, through adversity we rise. So this is included with your hoodie, and now you can wear it proudly. And if you give it to DI, then that bad karma follows you the rest of your life, because there's only one way to get a hoodie here, and that's by working your 1 year. So Nicole, Angela, Allie, Eden, and Cassidy, thank you for all you've done the last year. When I look at you guys, I can't believe that it's only been a year. It seems like it's been 10 years. And I also want to, if I can pull it over here. Per ardua surgo is our motto, and it's on our logo because it's Latin for through adversity we rise, because that's the whole point of our existence. Okay, today we're also recognizing Juliana Padilla, and Juliana, I feel like has been here for 10 years, but so it seems like she's always been here with us, but Juliana is actually hitting her 5 years here. And so I just have a letter that I want to read to her. Juliana, on behalf of the House of Hope's Board of Directors, Administrators, and staff, we commend you for your 5 years of service to the Salt Lake City House of Hope program. Your role in keeping the residential facilities running smoothly and safely during the evenings and weekends is a pivotal part of House of Hope's mission to make a difference in the lives of the families we serve. We appreciate your dedication to the program and your flexibility in stepping up whenever needed to assist the clients in their recovery. That's one thing I hear about Juliana all the time. It's like when there's an emergency or there's a tough spot, I just always hear her name come up. Your caring and acceptance toward the women and children in our program and feel comfortable and welcome at House of Hope. We want you to know that your contributions have impacted House of Hope as an organization, and your 5 years of employment add stability to the recovery support team. Your commitment over the past 5 years is greatly appreciated, and we hope that you will continue to be a strong member of House of Hope for many years to come. And I just want to hold up this check. I hope there's really a check in there. If there's not, I think
Thank you so much.
I think there's a $500 check in here to say thank you. It's the least we can do. So Juliana, does it seem like 5 years or 10 years or 5 weeks?
No, it actually feels like less. I feel like time just flew by and it's been 5 years now.
Yeah, it's amazing. I start thinking of things in decades, and then the older you get, the faster it goes. So you better do what you want to do, because it does go by pretty fast. So Juliana, I'm giving this check to Marion for you to sign out. And thank you for all that you've done for House of Hope in the last 5 years.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, everybody.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. Next is to do staff of the month and manager of the quarter. So back to you, Lisa.
Okay, I actually don't have Provo's, but I have one in front of me. So there might be somebody else that has the others. So I will do the one that I have, and I think this came, am I right? This came from Heather?
One of them came from Heather, but I have the other one.
Oh, okay, so I should have given you both. So, but can I still do one? Can I still do
Of
this?
course, you
Okay,
can. Go right ahead.
This one is from Heather. She chose Kelly Howard, and Kelly Howard is in our residential services during the day here, and you're supposed to check what you want to recognize them for, and Heather just checked everything she could, and I agree with that. Kelly goes way above and beyond. She has so much initiative. When she sees a need, she just does it. She's so organized. She helps all of us stay on track. She holds firm to the rules. She has great boundaries and is caring and fun. She always knows what's going on with the clients, doctor, dentist appointment, medications. There's so many moving pieces, and she keeps everything under control. And she makes sure everyone who needs to be wearing a mask is wearing one, and they better put it over their nose. Thanks so much for all of your hard work, Kelly. And I just want to say, if I'm ever feeling discouraged or overwhelmed, all I have to do is talk to Kelly, because she's so positive. It just makes me think like, yeah, we can do this. Yeah, it's good. That positive energy is so contagious. So I just want to recognize Heather's nomination of Kelly Howard for Staff of the Month.
Terrific. I'll do the other Salt Lake one, and then I'll turn it over to Allie to do Provo's or Jessica. I'm actually not sure who nominated this person, but they definitely deserve it. I think it was Lori and Rourke, but we want to recognize Eden Garcia for the Staff of the Month, a residential case manager in Salt Lake, who used to be in Provo. This person was chosen because they go the extra mile and beyond. They add to House of Hope's quality with skill and creativity. They handle challenging times, and with exceptional calm and commitment. I think that was one of the main reasons why Eden was chosen, because so many of our residential and outpatient team members were out with COVID at the same time, and Eden really had to step up and take over, and she did it with grace and skill. And it says Eden has shown great improvement in her ability to manage the details of her job, including meeting deadlines and being open to feedback. She continues to improve in her ability to relate to clients and meet their needs in a timely manner. She asks questions for clarification and puts into place feedback she receives about her job. She presents with a positive attitude and always seems willing to step up and to help. And we want to thank you for that, Eden, and congratulations on being Staff of the Month for July. Allie or Jessica?
Kurt, where do they get their cold hard cash? From Marion?
That's a
They
permanent.
get it from Marion, who will gladly ring her gong for you while you're there
Okay.
and give you your cash. Thank you, Marion. Do we have Provo?
Yeah,
Allie?
I have Provo's.
Oh, okay, thanks, Allie.
But first, I just want to say that Eden came from Provo. She's awesome because she was here first. I just want to point that out. So our Staff of the Month goes to Riley, one of our new RAs. And that is because she goes the extra mile. She adds to House of Hope's quality with skill and creativity, and it demonstrates ability to consistently meet high level of performance. Haley nominated her, and she said, Riley started at HOH not too long ago, and since then she has shown a tremendous desire to be a team player and has gone above and beyond to demonstrate this. She is great at holding boundaries with the clients and also being a listening ear for them. We really appreciate all of her hard work and willingness to do extra when she can.
Congratulations, Riley. That's awesome. Right out the gate.
Hey,
Great job.
I've done every job at House of Hope but the cook, because I'm scared of that job. And RA job is a huge challenge because you're on your own, having to make a lot of decisions with the moms and kids together, and nobody knows how hard that job is until you've done it. And so I want to bring up another really hard job, which is probably the hardest job above all. In our manager of the quarter, we want to recognize Katrina Raymond for all the work that she's done. She has the largest team at House of Hope, and she has triple the hiring and employee managing than anybody has. And the other thing is, as you know, if you worked with Katrina, she takes feedback, she tries to apply it. She's grown so much. Every time I see Katrina, I'm just so proud of her because I mean, she just grows no matter what, and has such a tough job. And if you work on her team, you know that it's a tough position, and it's 24 hours a day. And I so much appreciate everyone on her team that supports her, but especially Katrina, for your ability to problem solve. You're always advocating for your team all the time. And Lori had wrote some other things that she wanted to give to you personally, but we totally agreed that that Katrina has done so much through so many hard things, and she's also set a record for the person the longest in that position, because it's such a tough position. And it's hard to find words because she's so good at problem solving, and just her personal and professional development is amazing. So I'm just really happy that our largest team is led by somebody that's so great. So the managers of the month, they get an award, but they have to use it to make themselves, to improve themselves in some way. So Katrina will do her treatment plan, and we support her in funding her to become a better supervisor. And I hope that if you're on her team, that you'll shoot her an email telling her what you appreciate. And now back to you, Kirt.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Are you driving the van?
No, I'm in my car. I was heading back to the treatment center from Douglas, but I pulled over.
Oh, okay. I'm like, don't do what Katrina's doing.
So I pulled over.
Yeah, Katrina, you deserve it.
You absolutely do, Katrina. You absolutely do.
So Katrina, I just have to put you on the spot and ask you one question. For all managers who have less time than you, what do you think you need to survive here as a manager more than anything else? Besides caffeine. Oh, but you're not a caffeine drinker.
I do drink caffeine. I drink a lot of it.
Oh, good.
I think just having people to talk to really helps. Having good coworkers really helps. And just being able to, find something that makes you happy. When you leave work, don't think about work all the time. Try and turn your brain off. I had the hardest time doing that at first, and now I've learned how to do it. But yeah, just being able to separate the two, I think.
Good advice. Good advice from Katrina.
Yeah. Stay calm and just let things be. You don't gotta try and control or fight things.
It has a way of working out, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You're a rock star, Katrina. Congratulations. You're so awesome. So I'm going to turn the time over to Cami, who's going to take our culture corner for the month. Cami.
Okay, so I was just gonna review our Pride, Black Lives Matter, Juneteenth. I think it was a huge success. We had some amazing speakers. I mean, Heather even had handouts that were super, I mean, so much information, such a learning process. It gave us an opportunity for us to get vulnerable, you know, Kirt teaching us about different colors and what that means to him. And just that we were able to incorporate all of that. I think that we had a huge success this month. So for the end of the month, that was all for June. June was amazing. So we want to keep the amazing going. For July, the conversation or the idea was going to be on being a pioneer and what that means to you guys. What being a pioneer means, where we got our independence, how we got our independence for the 24th. So anybody that has any information on Utah, or if this is an important holiday for you and you feel like you have some ideas or you have some information that would be beneficial for staff and also for clients, we want your ideas. Our committee currently is Lori Weaver, who's not here today, Kirt, myself, Allison Hutchins, who also has COVID, Ariel, I think she's on, Sarah joined also and has been super helpful. From Provo, we have Bryce and Alana. So we try and meet every other week to keep this going, keep the importance of staying educated ourselves and also being examples and sharing that with our staff. So anybody who has any ideas on the 24th or for Pioneer, we'd love your ideas so that we can keep this rolling and keep it continually being positive. Like June was amazing. It was full of information and I feel like it gave the clients some good ideas. I know that they painted rocks and planted flowers and did all sorts of, you know, on Memorial Day, they had Rourke did an amazing job and we just kind of want to keep that spirit flowing. So if anybody has ideas for this, we're open to it and we would love your feedback. You could just send any of us an email or, you know, just let us know your thoughts. So next time we meet, we can keep it going as a success. So that's it.
Thank you, Cami. Thank you so much. It is time to get into this month's training, and is going to be presented by a team of folks here you can see. So I am going to turn the time now over, I believe, to Heather.
All right, so this is hopefully going to be interactive and not just us talking to you. Oh, go back one. We're not ready for that. Okay, so pull out a piece of paper for real. And I'm going to give you 1 minute and I'm going to really time it because you know how fast a minute goes. Please write down your definition of trauma. So we're going to go into like the official definition, but how would you describe trauma? How would you define trauma? So go ahead. Okay, we have about 20 seconds left. Okay, so hopefully we can be a little bit organized about this. I don't know if I can see everybody, but if you guys want to share your definition, will you just raise your hand or put it in the chat? You guys know how to raise your hand on here with the little reactions. Click on reactions and then there's raise hand. Okay, Nicole.
Okay, so my definition that I got was an adverse event or events which cause ongoing distress and mental health related dysfunction after the events are no longer directly impacting the individual.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, Ginny.
I have that traumas come in a variety of forms. There are major stressors that can impact your life to the point that you can hardly function. Some of it comes up. It can also be silent and can be triggered after the fact, like in PTSD. You can still carry trauma.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Shay said an event or circumstance that has a negative emotional, physical, psychologic, etc. impact. And Liesel said distressful situation or experiences that exceeds your mental or emotional capacity. Robert, an event, oh no, that Robert isn't Robert, it was Broadbent. Okay, an event in your life that had emotional, physical, or situational trauma. And Lisa Nilsson, a crisis event or situation that upsets your regular course of action in life. Does anyone have anything else they want to add to that that maybe hasn't been touched on yet? Okay, those are all amazing definitions. Give all of yourselves an A+ on your paper. They are all true and accurate. So a lot of you talked about things that are ongoing. Let's see, Justine says an experience or event that a person goes through that can affect their mental stability and choices that are caused by the stress of those events. Absolutely. Okay, so will you go to the next slide, Kirt? Okay, so a lot of the things that we described could go both into grief and trauma. And so, of course, there are some things that overlap and some things that do not. So let's take those apart a little bit and see where we can put some of those things. So let's start with grief. What is grief that is not trauma? What are some of the things that come up? So let's think about when we know about something. So if someone dies or you lose a pet or you lose your house or you lose your job or something, do you talk about it with people? Like you come to work, you talk about it, people know that it happened, right? So grief is more of a known or a public event. Whereas if you look at trauma, are you going around telling everybody that this happened? Most of the time not. I mean, there's always an exception, right? But most people push it down and keep it a secret and don't want to talk about it, right? So that's one. What about sleep? Who wants to address which one has insomnia and which one maybe sleeps too much? What do you guys think? You can raise your hand on the little thing if you want. Grief sleeps too much and trauma has insomnia, from Ashley. Yes. And why is that? Because grief generally, everything's general, wants to disassociate and not deal with it. Whereas trauma, it's so traumatic that they can't sleep. Like even if they wanted to, trauma-somnia. There you go. So that's another part of it. With grief, do all of us experience some sort of loss? Whether it's expected or not in your life right now, it is expected as a human experience, right? Whereas trauma is more of an unexpected experience. You don't have to go through trauma to have a human experience, whereas everyone will go through grief as a human experience. Let's see. A big one of this too is grief is a loss of something like tangible or job or whatever, whereas trauma is a loss of safety, a loss of control, and even a loss of yourself. So you can see the differences of grief and trauma. Whereas trauma, you don't have safety, control, or even the sense of yourself. That's huge. Now, what are some of the things that are shared emotions in between?
Say that again.
Like, so in the Venn diagram, what are some emotions that are shared between grief and trauma? So anxiety, anger, sadness, fear, sadness, anger. Yep. Pain, depression, avoid thinking about it. Yep. Some sense of loss. So sometimes we go into this thing that like, oh, it's a traumatic event, or oh, I'm traumatized, or oh, trigger warning, and all of these things. So I want you guys to be able to discern the differences between grief and trauma, and know that the grief is a human experience where trauma shouldn't have happened to the person. So we're going to go in more into that with the definition. So over to Peter.
All right, so we're going to go over a little bit of exposure and symptoms of coping. So part of the presentation or the thing with trauma was an equation. If anyone is familiar, at least for me, it reminded me of like in psychology, the ABCX model, where it's like you have the stressor and then you use your resources and then how you perceive the event, which equals the outcome. So in this thing that we learned about was called developmental traumatology. So it's kind of ironic because personally at math, I suck, right? Barely survived math in all my college courses, but here I am with the formula. So the formula here is positive E times negative C equals negative S. So just spitballing, I don't know how many people might get it right. What do you think this means or equals regarding trauma? If no one knows, that's okay. It's math, so I get it. So, yes, Ginny. I think you're muted.
Are you kind of referring to like the similar to the ABCX, double ABCX model?
In a way, yeah. So with the positive E times negative C equals negative S. In terms of trauma, and knowing that it's linked similar to ABCX, what do you think this details or entails?
I think it's maybe the pre-crisis and how all of the pile up of different maybe stressors, what happens, the event then leads to how they handle it and how it affects their lives, if they're able to get through it. It just kind of going there. I don't know exactly what this formula is. I've seen
it's actually, no, that was actually pretty close. So air 5 to you. So going over it on the next slide. So positive E is, it's positive not because the experience or the thing is positive, but it's something that's being gained, something that's being obtained. So the positive E is the exposure to negative event, series of events, or other experiences considered emotionally harmful or life-threatening. Or in other words, you can refer to as the adverse childhood experiences that a lot of the clients face. So some of those, so different types of ACEs, I mean, there's abuse, emotional, physical, sexual, a lot of neglect, just mental, emotional, physical, but also it can include like household dysfunction. So like if someone grew up in a home where parents or siblings used, if there was domestic violence in the home, if there was family members or caregivers that had a mental illness, if there was any kind of relative that was incarcerated. It's any type of thing that kind of helped shape your upbringing, shape your experience. So sometimes, with the ladies, they'll refer negatively to like, oh, I don't trust certain people. I don't trust this person. I don't trust this. And sometimes you're like, where is this coming from? Like, where is this coming from? And then you can trace it back to something that they grew up with in their home, something that they experienced early in their life that kind of helped mold their perception of life, really. So you take those experiences that they've gained, and then you times it by the systems of coping that are unavailable. So it's the lack of helpful coping skills. If any of you have been through a huge, I don't know, you don't have to be specifically detailed, or it could be small letter T trauma, but just kind of traumatic experience in your life where it's like, I have no idea what the crap to do or how to cope with this. It can just be a raise of hands. I mean, for sure, I've been through some things where you're just like, I don't know what to do for this. Like, do I just, curl up in a ball and just cry? Do I go get a bunch of In-N-Out and just eat a bunch to, soothe my feelings? Whatever, whatever ways we don't have to cope with something traumatic. So if someone has experienced emotional or sexual abuse in their home, or if there's been substance misuse, or, family member or loved one committed suicide, if someone doesn't have a way to cope with that, that can be really traumatic, and it can really make certain traumatic experiences be just all encompassing, where it's like, I don't know what to do with myself because of this event. So with that, the experiences that you gain, lack of coping, equals the negative S, which is called chronic neurodysregulation. Basically, it's adaptation, as going to the training, referring to it, where it's like a lot of the ways how we adapt to those situations, it's hardwired in our biology. Being able to, like, well, if this is what I've been through and I don't know how to cope, so then it kind of shapes moving forward, like they don't know what to do with themselves. Or that's where you see a lot of risky behaviors. You see a lot of just dysregulation. They just feel like, I know some clients where they're just like, I don't know how to cope. I don't know how to deal with this thing, right? So if this happens over a long period of time, I have on the next slide, if over a period of time, if there are no healthy systems of coping, obviously it added the keyword healthy systems of coping, because working at substance abuse treatment, a lot of the times the substances have been their coping. They've used it to numb the pain. They've used it to avoid experiencing certain traumas. So if there are no healthy systems of coping that are available, and it results in that dysregulation is just ongoing over and over and over, because as it says, the body keeps the score, which is a great book about how trauma doesn't affect just the mind, but it affects our physical and physiological health as well. People are at an increase for chronic disease, or psychiatric disorders, impaired cognition. Sometimes they just have a difficult time emotionally regulating, or, I've known those that have been so anxious and so depressed that they get sick often due to past trauma. Issues with work and school performance. Perhaps trauma is related to getting along with other people, being able to focus. It's hard to connect when maybe some of the past trauma involved other people, or involved like betrayal trauma. Obesity. Do you recommend the documentary about Gomorrah Mate called? Yeah, like trauma is such a complex thing where it's, I don't know, before I started here, where you're just working with those that have trauma, you think it's very kind of cut and dry, right? And then when I realized I was wrong, you know, it's a very layered and there's a lot of different factors that play into it. I once had one of my previous jobs, I mean, clients with that had maybe a PTSD diagnosis. And some of the people were like, oh, how can they have PTSD? They never served in the military. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it could be a traumatic event in any. So it shows that even a lot of people just have a very limited view of what trauma really is or how it affects people. Substance use addictions is what we work with. Risky sexual behaviors, poverty and crime, and even something I've tried to focus on lately is just like lack of self-love. You know, being able to try and incorporate just more self-love with the clients, because if they love themselves, they've been able to process through that things, and they'll want to take better care of themselves. So the next slide. So there's some different things to remember. Grief and coping don't have specific timetables, right? Some people can grieve, some people can cope with something traumatic, and it takes them like a month or a week even. Others, it's been 10 years and they're still struggling to cope. That's okay. It's okay to, you know, we don't want to rush anyone to cope with grief or to cope with trauma they've been through. So be patient, be loving, because, you know, we're all different. And it's that next point of how there can be two clients that go through the exact same experience, but they have different outcomes. Why? I mean, I put resiliency on there, but maybe just open that question up. What, you have two different clients that have had similar backgrounds, similar experiences, maybe similar drugs of choice, similar trauma, but one's doing fine, one's been able to process through it, one's been able to work their way through it, another one is just stuck. They're like, I can't get over this. Why?
There are some clients too, or just personally experienced trauma in your life, and you've experienced that. The effects on your health long-term or even short-term. And I kind of see that as, it looks like another layer for our clients. Just personally experiencing that, and how that's affected my health overall in the past. And so I look at that as just one more layer for our clients, many of them with so many health issues. Is it because of actual physical trauma, mental stress, so many things? And so I just think that is such a big part of it for many of our clients.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Sometimes it's just another thing to work with, and to, I think, just the patience part. I mean, we're here to help. I'm not trying to fix anyone, or, you know, I don't think anyone needs fixing. Sometimes I just want to be understood. Depends on, many factors: resources, environment, family, support, personality. It goes back to those, you know, what do they have to cope? What do they have available? Whether it's family, it's resources, whether it's a therapist handing them a sheet that says, here, coping skills, right? So for the ladies that don't have a lot of those coping skills, help them uncover some. You know, I'm under the belief that, like, I think a lot of us have ways of coping that are healthy, but maybe they're covered, or we just don't feel like we can bring them out. Yeah, the internal and external resources, you know, it's like helping build that motivation. Like, why do I want to be able to cope with this? Why do I want to be able to overcome or process through this trauma? Versus those outside sources that are helping facilitate comfortability and just safety. But yeah, it's just helping them build resilience, you know? I mean, yeah, they don't know how, because being here, like, you know, coming here, a lot, the substances, the drugs, where they're coping. So now that it's like, hey, you come here, can't use, like, we're trying to have you be sober. And so then they're just like, now what I used to use to help cope now I can't use, but it's also not healthy. So now what? So us being able to come in and, you know, replace those negative behaviors, bad behaviors, healthier behaviors. And then the last one, never pull trauma out of someone who's not ready to process it. I've been in a number of intakes where, you know, you ask the question, have you experienced trauma in your life? And I always tell them, like, if there is, I'm always going to invite, hey, if you're ready to do it, by all means, like, we're here to process in group, process one-on-one therapy. But if someone's not ready, we definitely don't want to be like, all right, I'll sit here until you're ready, because you really need to process through this. Because obviously, it's way more damaging. We don't want to re-traumatize someone through what they've been through. So never try and pull it out, but always be inviting, always be loving and understanding, and being willing to validate and just let them know, like, hey, you know, we're here to help. If you don't feel like you have any ways of coping, we'll help you out with that. And just being able to see the growth and just a lot of the growth in some of the ladies here when they've been able to process something that's difficult, process that trauma. You almost just tell, like, a countenance, like this weight is lifted, and they're like, I feel like I can now move on in life and maybe even enjoy life or even love myself, because they've been able to work through that and process through that. So is that it?
What's Julie next? Is that? Oh. This is mine. And so we're going to review the importance of being trauma informed. And trauma informed services incorporate knowledge and trauma. And being trauma informed gives staff the who, the what, the when, the why, and the how trauma has had an impact. So that's really important. And services are delivered so the client is able to confront trauma, but not be re-victimized through that confrontation and trying to move through it. And it helps them move into recovery and empowerment. So trauma-informed is a culture that acknowledges the impact of trauma and strives to increase physical and emotional safety. And this is a public health issue. So it's not just for us to know, it's for anyone who is publicly funded. All of those agencies really benefit from being trauma informed. And there's a growing expectation that all agencies operate as trauma informed. And so it's good for us to know the difference between trauma informed and trauma specific is based on therapeutic models that agencies specifically use. And so those are the two differences. How our primary task to address the impact of trauma and help our clients move into recovery would be a different model because we are a substance use disorder than another agency would be. So we have to keep it in mind, keep it for the entire agency, and then realize how we can help our clients move through trauma-specific situations, and we can intervene and help facilitate trauma and recovery from the trauma. The next slide. So some of the things that this is from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA, and I thought it was really interesting that we talked about they realized the widespread impact of trauma and have seen the potential paths for recovery and support those. And there's a recognition that the signs and symptoms of trauma in clients, families, staff, and others involved within the system. So we know that there's a lot of systemic distrust, and there's a lot of situations that have come up that have given trauma to our different clients. And I thought it was really helpful for us to note it recognizes the trauma of family members, because we do have family orientation and we do want them repairing, being given an opportunity to repair appropriate relationships. So I thought that was really interesting as well to keep in mind. And responds by fully integrating knowledge about trauma. And this is in all aspects of treatment. It's not just what we do in this area or this area, but it really promotes responding to trauma in all aspects. And then the last one is to seek to actively resist re-traumatization. And I really appreciate the way it said actively. So we're actively seeking not to re-traumatize clients and to be aware of how they are traumatized. So as we go through different things, maybe just speaking for admissions, sometimes the clients have filled out tons and tons and tons of forms and they've never gotten anywhere, and it's been frustrating. And then we come in and the first thing they do is fill out more forms. And so to see how that could have impacted them in a different area is really important that we keep that in mind. So the next slide. So here are the 4 different types of trauma. And so acute is a single event, one time or on a small scale. And what I just wanted to point out about the small scale is because this really has to deal with each person's perception of what a small scale is. Maybe someone has, walks into this just came to me, walks into a cobweb with spiders in it, and it totally freaks them out. It's like, oh, whatever, and they get over it. And somebody else might really think that was not on a small scale. So that's important to keep in mind. And then, so we go from acute to complex, and complex to kind of give that some meaning would be, so there's a lot of different kinds of trauma and multiple. So it would be if someone experienced a natural disaster, had a suicide attempt or someone in their family tried to commit suicide, and then they have a history of family violence. So there's all these different types. So that would be complex trauma. And then chronic trauma is repeated, and it goes over and over and over. So this would be an example of domestic abuse while growing up, watching a parent, then having that perpetrated upon you, then moving out into community somewhere and having a relationship that has domestic violence in it too. So that's a chronic trauma. And then secondary is indirectly experiencing or witnessing a trauma event. And the example I'm going to use for this is this weekend, I pulled around the corner. I was going somewhere and saw I think it was 5 or 6 cars just smash up all at once. And it was, I witnessed it. I wasn't involved in it. I was just one car behind the car, one of the cars that was hit. There was a lot of people running around. And so for me, that was secondary trauma. I just pulled over for a few minutes and thought about it and kind of refocused my breathing. And all of these right here, because they're a little, you think, oh, well, where does this fit and where does that fit? Because there's so many types of trauma is, and Peter did reference the book, The Body Keeps Score. His name is Bessel van der Kolk, and it is a really good book for professional and personal development. They talked about it a lot in the trauma training. So we're just encouraging everybody. And I think someone said that you can listen to it for free on YouTube. I think that's what someone said today. So
yeah, that's right. A student read it on YouTube, so you can listen to it for free.
Yeah. So encourage everybody to do that. Thanks so much.
Hello. So I am going to teach everyone about what I loved about the trauma training that we went to is learning basically like obviously the brain and body connection of trauma, but also the biology of trauma, and then knowing how the brain works, knowing how our body works, how the nervous system works, how we can heal one's nervous system to help them heal from trauma. So before I talk about the neurosequential model of therapy, so sorry, pull this up really quick. So just keeping in mind that how our brain works. So we're born, it is very plastic, so meaning we're able to learn things very easily. Just how we talk about, like, kids are like sponges. That's the truth. They can learn things very easily. And then as we grow older, as our brain organizes and creates memories, more neural pathways, it gets harder and harder to relearn things. And so with that, as we get older, if you really want to change something, it's best to focus on what part of the brain, that behavior or system that you want to change. And so this ties into what the neurosequential model is. So it was created by Dr. Bruce Perry, and it's not a specific type of treatment. It's just a way of thinking about trauma and how to treat it. So it's developmentally sensitive, neurobiologically informed approach to clinical work. So it's, again, not a specific therapeutic technique or intervention. So the idea is that you're going to start at the deepest part of the brain. And then once those parts of the brain are functioning correctly, then you can move on. So the deepest part of our brain is the brain stem. So our brain stem that controls breathing, heart rate, very basic things. And it's considered so self-regulatory. So your brainstem regulates the different systems of your body. And then next is your limbic system, which is part of your brain that allows you to relate to people. And then next is the cortical, so cognitive part of our brain. And that's so like prefrontal cortex, our ability to plan, think ahead. And so just keeping in mind, working with our clients. So drugs, they hijack the brain, right? And so when addiction takes over, your brain tags the substance as the most important thing, like more important than food, water, sleep. And so it takes over even the most primitive part of your brain takes over your higher functioning part of your brains. And so to keep that, like, again, in mind as you work with our clients, how intense addiction is and how it really it truly does take over your brain. So moving on. Okay, so the neurosequential model. So it's working from bottom up. So the most bottom part of your brain, which is your brainstem, is called the reptilian brain. So self-regulation, self-protection. This would incorporate also fight or flight, or freeze, or fawn. So safety is one of safety and survival are the biggest like reasons for the reptilian brain to function. Next is the mammalian brain, so like the mammal brain. Interconnection, social emotional connection, belonging, teamwork, empathy, attention to relationships. And then next is our primate, so our prefrontal cortex, our cognitive brain, which is reasoning, feature orientation, abstract thought, complex language, and creativity and imagination. And so I really liked learning about this because going back to safety, if our clients don't feel safe, then they're not going to be able to benefit from treatment. They're not going to be able to learn. And that's because their brains are not allowing them to feel safe. And again, so safety is only that person knows, right, if they feel safe. And so we can do the best that we can to provide a safe environment, but we need clients' input if they feel safe. And if not, then describe like what about treatment, whether it's like a physical safety, emotional safety, what we can do to help them specifically feel safe. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the polyvagal theory. So before I go into this, so our central nervous system is our brain, brainstem, and then our spinal cord. So from the central nervous system, we have the am I saying it right? Autonomic, yeah, okay. Autonomic nervous system, and then within the autonomic nervous system, there's three little like break-offs from that. And so there's parasympathetic, which we'll talk about, which is also part of the vagal nerve, and then sympathetic. And the difference between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system, it's designed to make sure that we can function. And so it's the fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn. And so your sympathetic nervous system kicks into action when you feel unsafe, when you are not comfortable, or whatever it is. And so, and then on the opposite end, parasympathetic system. So it's the system that helps regulate your body so it can recover. And it's in charge of digestion and urination. Next slide. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see. Dr. Stephen Forge, so he created, or like he fell upon, the polyvagal theory. So what he has found, like through his research and experience working with clients with trauma, is that your polyvagal nerve is affected by trauma. It's affected by stress. Basically anything that is like negative or adverse to your body, it is affected. And if your polyvagal nerve is not able to run properly, then that definitely, again, affects your ability to like work through trauma, to heal. And so it's a very interesting concept. Let's see. Okay, next slide. Okay, so ways that you can strengthen your parasympathetic nervous system, or the vagus nerve. So mindfulness, being in nature, art, yoga, deep breathing, sensory awareness, so like mindfulness, paying attention to any of your five senses, singing, humming. So when we did the training, we actually were encouraged during the training, of course, to like put ourselves on mute, but either hum or sing. And I thought it actually worked. I tried humming and I felt better. So anyways, and then also your psoas release muscle. Your psoas muscle is like the lower back muscle. And so finding ways like to like relax that, because then that will help relax the rest of your body. Next slide. Okay, so this is a video I want to show you guys, and I don't think I can click on it, so I'm just gonna type it and then type it in the chat and see if I can click on that and have it work. So we'll try. Okay, it's not going to work, sorry. So just a video that kind of explained more the anatomy of the vagus nerve.
Pull it up, Stephanie. You want me to try to pull it up real quick?
If you can.
Give me just a second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, darn it.
Okay.
Looks like our firewall is preventing it.
I promise it's nothing bad. Okay. Oh, well, I can just talk more about it.
Okay.
Thank you, though. So in the video, it just shows how the vagus nerve. So it starts in the bottom of your cranial nerves back here, and then it goes throughout your body, and it touches every single major organ. And actually, so vagus in Latin means wandering. So if you would see a picture of the vagus nerve, it just wanders throughout all of your body to all the major organs. And so if you're always constantly in fight, flight, or freeze, you might have problems like digestion, being able to relax. And so with clients who've been through a lot of trauma, especially developmental trauma, and the years where your nervous system was supposed to be strengthened, and that would help your ability to cope. If you're constantly in an environment that doesn't allow your own nervous system to strengthen, then that can be problematic throughout life. And that's why we have clients do the ACEs questionnaire when they come into treatment, and then giving us an idea of how their adverse childhood experiences could have contributed to their drug use and other unhealthy coping skills. Okay, next slide. Okay. It's really big. I should have sent them smaller. Sorry, Kurt. Okay. So, break. Okay. So part of Dr. Forge's theory with the vagus nerve is the vagal brake. So your vagus nerve, it comes into action to allow you to socialize. So if you are your body's too focused on safety, then it's going to be hard to your body to worry about or be able to connect with others. And so the vagus nerve affects social engagement systems and puts the brakes on older strategies, which would be your brainstem, so allowing the heart and body to function as a person works through social situations. A vagal brake needs a robust myelinated ventral vagal nerve to be able to maintain visceral homeostasis during social engagement. So what that means is your ventral, so the nervous or the, yeah, that nerve, just like any other like neural network, has to be myelinated. So myelinated, that can increase or get thicker by like using it more often, or even like diets like fatty acids. And then prolonged and or diverse early life tends to atrophy or impair the development of the ventral vagal system. Next slide. Okay, so the quest for safety, so first we start with their environment. So that's like outside of our body and inside of our body. And then next goes to our nervous system. And then within our nervous system, we have what's called neuroception. So neuroception is how we interpret things. So our brain can either interpret things as safety, or danger, or even life-threatening. Next slide. All right, vagal brake. So infants with difficulties in regulating the vagal brake during social attention tasks would have difficulties developing appropriate social interactions, requiring reciprocal engagement and disengagement strategies. So basically just how important it is for kids to learn how to socialize, and being able to have that like reciprocity, so giving and taking. And this is actually, so the window of tolerance, and I'll get into EMDR later, but in order for like processing to occur, in order for new learning to occur, your brain has to be within what's called the window of tolerance. So that's where like you feel safe. In that window of tolerance, you're able to like be playful, be engaged, an absence of like fear and sadness. And then if you're too aroused, so like hypoarousal, that's like being hypervigilant. So someone who's experienced trauma, if you're having a trigger and feeling hypervigilant, it's going to be hard for you to learn new things, or like process your own trauma. And then hyperarousal is where your arousal is like too low. So that's where you have like flat affect, low energy, low vitality, and then it's difficult to connect to someone emotionally on this level. Okay, next slide. All right, so neuroceptive invalidity, can't talk today. Neuroceptive invalidity. Victims of abuse have state regulation difficulties with a bias toward behavioral states that are self-protective. A history of abuse may tune the nervous system to be cautious and prepared for defensive fight or flight behaviors, even when real dangers do not exist. It is possible that neuroception of the social environment provides an invalid indicator for individuals with complex trauma. This potential vulnerability to be defensive may result in difficulties of feeling safe with others and in developing trusting social relationships. Thus, rather being calm in the presence of another non-threatening human, the autonomic nervous system is regulated to a state that supports fight and flight as a social defense system. Okay, next slide. All right, so with that, I thought it'd be good segue into EMDR therapy. So with someone who's experienced trauma, how can you help them? And so EMDR therapy is a evidence-based therapy that at first was like developed specifically for trauma, but throughout the years, as it's evolved, they have seen it be effective with many other like mental health disorders, depression, anxiety, even addiction. It can be used, issues with attachment. And so Francine Shapiro, she was the person who discovered EMDR. And this was in the year that I was born, 87. So one day she was walking in the park and noticed that she had some upsetting thoughts and feelings that suddenly disappeared. She was puzzled by this and decided to find out why. As a graduate student studying psychology, she decided to research what was happening for her more closely. She began experimenting and observing that when she moved her eyes rapidly back and forth while thinking of something disturbing, the disturbance began to go away. She eventually developed a protocol that could be duplicated and studied, which is now known as EMDR therapy, or eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing therapy. So she began working with people suffering from PTSD. As her research was became powerful and very successful. And the people with PTSD, after receiving several EMDR therapy sessions, found that their symptoms decreased. People started to feel better, and since it's a discovery, EMDR therapy has become one of the most recommended and researched psychotherapeutic treatment of trauma. Okay, next slide. And this is another video, but they don't work, so that's cool. So basically, it's just a video that kind of explains EMDR simply, but we'll go to the next slide and we'll explain it that way. So within EMDR therapy, there's 8 phases. So the first phase would be history taking and treatment planning. And that also would include, like, is this person a good candidate for EMDR therapy? So to be able to process trauma in EMDR therapy, you have to be ready. So you have to be able to utilize coping skills while you think of your trauma and maintain in that window of tolerance. And so that would be the first phase. And so if someone isn't quite ready to go like further into the processing, you can continue to teach them coping skills, ways to be the present moment until they're ready to process their trauma. Okay, what's that really quick? Okay, so then the next phase is preparation. So part of preparation, again, would be like teaching them the coping skills, making sure they're ready, and then assessment. So this is when you would actually do the actual like processing. And so with EMDR, you can do eye movements. So what Francine Shapiro like first realized on her own, but also they found that any kind of bilateral stimulation is effective. And so what makes it effective is that it mimics REM sleep. It's like the back and forth, back and forth. So you can use what are called tappers, little buzzers that buzz back and forth, even like audio sounds that go back and forth. And so you can kind of, whatever a client feels more comfortable with, and that's, I think, a really cool thing about EMDR is that it can like, I guess, have different ways of like whatever client's comfortable with, or comfortability and what they choose. And then as you do, they're called like sets. So you do several sets and then you check in with them, seeing what comes up for them. There's no right or wrong answer. You're just seeing what their brain or body is processing. And then ideally, you'll get into the installation phase, and that's where they report like a significant reduction in the intensity of the emotions of the target or traumatic experience that they're focusing on. Yeah, anyways, it's a lot, so I'll stop talking. If you guys have any other questions about EMDR, feel happy to contact myself or Erica. I did put my email address, and Erica, sorry, Erica. Our email address is in the next slide if you guys have any questions. So that's it.
Sweet. Am I going first, or Alyssa, did you want to go before me?
Go ahead, Amanda. I'm
Okay.
prepared to last.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so I am going over more the meditation and self-care. So when we did this training, I was actually surprised of how much was actually a lot of, it was like focused on us with our self-care, with our like, hey, take a break, everyone do this meditation. We did a lot of it as a group during the whole training. So it was very insightful in that way. If you want to go to the next slide, Kurt, perfect. But one thing that really stood out to me, which is why I wanted to talk on this topic, is what does self-care mean? So self-care has been identified as the process of taking care of oneself with behaviors that promote health and active management of illness when it occurs. So a main thing that I bolded there is the oneself. So it's taking care of oneself, which in my mind, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I mean, the name, it's right in the name, self-care. However, I think a lot of people, we think self-care is more of the pampering side. So that actually leads us to the next slide, if you'll go to that one. Perfect. So self-care versus pampering. Some self-care activities, this would be very simple things. Taking a shower, going to bed early, cooking yourself a healthy meal. Those are all self-care that I feel like almost gets overlooked, because when I am teaching groups, even like behavior groups as a case manager, and I'm telling the clients before I learned this, I'm kind of wanting them to go deeper, right? What are big self-care activities? However, it's not that. It's way more simple. And so in this training that we did, it all goes over what's pampering activities. And that is, you can kind of relate the two. However, I think it's important to keep them separate. So that would be more scheduling a hair appointment, getting a pedicure, taking a vacation. Those are all great things to do. We're not saying don't do those, but to remember the difference, because with pampering activities, you're usually paying someone to do things for you in a way. Like you're going to the spa, you're having someone do a massage for you, versus the self-care is what you're doing for yourself to make yourself feel better. If you guys want in the chat, I would appreciate if you guys would reply with like now that you know the difference, self-care versus pampering, put in like what self-care activities you do. And this can be in like really simple too, even just like, trying to think of some simple ones. Maybe you guys will have one. Yeah, reading, that's what you're doing for yourself. Good. And then another thing too is self-care is also something that you're not doing. So it'd be something as simple as, we'll put it work related. If someone asks you to cover a shift and you're already maxed out on hours, you're burnt out, would be saying no, that's a self-care activity. Look at that in the chat. Drinking water, perfect. Yeah, see, very like, I think we complicate it as humans. Self-care is way more simple. Good, gardening, yoga, a walk in the morning, listening to relaxing music, riding bikes, cooking, and some Xbox here and there. Nice. Yeah, those are great. And then right at the bottom, it says self-care is what you do for yourself, not what you have or pay someone else to do for you. I think this is important for us as workers, obviously in this field, and then to teach our clients. So if we as the teachers, we're leading the groups, we need to be really good with the self-care idea so we can teach it to them. Because before this training, I was doing so many self-care groups, like every Friday almost. And I was like, oh crap. And so after this training, I actually came back, and like the first group I did when I came back was on this idea, and the clients loved it. They were doing a lot more, and they're like, finally the distinction is clear, because truly whenever I asked them, they were doing the big things. They were getting their hair done now that they're in day treatment, and they're like, yeah, I'm taking such good care of myself. But also they left out the mental part of it. They were just thinking all physical, and I think that's where a lot of us get hung up too. We picture like going and taking a bath, but what are we doing mentally, emotionally, even intellectually with self-care too?
Amanda?
Yes.
In the training, I thought it was a really good distinction also. They talked about self-care and relationship care.
Oh, yes.
And in the training, right afterwards, I was watching a YouTube, and this lady was like, oh, this is my self-care. I go to Costco and shop. And the whole time she's like, and I have to find this special one for this son, and this, my daughter wants these socks. And I was like, that's not self-care.
Yeah.
That's relationship care. And it really helped so much.
Very true. Yeah. I think our clients too, a lot of them are moms. And so they get caught up in that idea too, of like doing things for others is their self-care. I'm like, no, you got it all wrong. So perfect. Thank you. Do you want to go to the next slide? All right. So the self-care wheel. So kind of what I talked about before, a lot of us focus on the physical self-care part when there's all these other ones. I'll just hit a few in this little wheel. So there's the physical, and it's also like it almost is so simple. It's like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you think back to that, you know, those very basic principles. With physical, it's just safe housing, regular medical care, eating healthy, exercise, be sexual, get enough sleep, take vacations, take time off. So that helps with the physical. Psychological, there's self-reflection. Therapy could even be your, you know, processing, like that's what you're doing for yourself. Journaling. Emotional is, let's see, so the affirmations, self-love. And I'm glad, I think it was Peter who hit on this one. He mentioned a lot of clients need more self-love, mostly when it comes to trauma. So what's gonna create more self-love is self-care, doing things and proving to yourself that you can make yourself feel better in that aspect. Spiritual would be, you know, more self-reflection, going into nature. I think someone mentioned that in the, actually a couple people mentioned that in the chat. So hiking, biking, finding spiritual community. Personal would be learn who you are, figure out what you want in your life. And then professional. So this is where we come into play. We need to take time for lunch. That's mentioned so much in these, like take your full 30 minutes and during those 30 minutes, don't work. And then set boundaries. That's with clients as well as probably other coworkers or your supervisor, and don't work overtime if you don't have to, and then leave work at work. So just down to that simple level, I think is important to remember with self-care. And then do you want to go to the next one, Kurt? Okay, and then I wanted to touch a little bit on grounding. So this is the ability to process environmental information in the moment to assess one's safety. Kind of goes back to safety and being trauma informed. I think what we could do more, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself too with the groups that I do, but this as House of Hope, we can do more grounding and meditations, like teaching that with the clients. So if you look at this triangle, the basic, you know, framework where everything's made is grounding, centering, mindfulness. Then the next step, it goes, once you have that pretty good, it's safety planning. And then the next very top is de-escalation. So with clients, as we know, working with them, it's most likely they're going to be escalated for one reason or another. They're not going to be able to emotionally regulate sometimes. So with the grounding, it comes into play, and not doing grounding like right in those moments, but teaching it before things happen. I kind of think of it like running a marathon. You're training, right? And then for like the big event, not really planning for them to like freak out, but if you teach them and you're doing grounding exercise every day in group, or even at the houses, I know a lot of people do meditation, like a lot of RAs will do meditation with the clients at the houses, teach them the grounding, so then they can go to safety planning and de-escalation when things occur. I think the next slide goes more into that. Perfect. Okay. So this one is just grounding is detaching from overwhelming emotions. This can be considered a physical or a sensory distraction away from internal feelings toward external realities. It's useful when someone habitually experiencing flashbacks, overpowering sadness, dissociation, aggression, and desire to flee or fight, which we deal a lot with that. I think our clients, a lot of them want to leave a lot of the time. So doing those grounding exercises before they get to that point. Anyone experiencing intense conflict, judgment, time crunch, fear of being blamed, and then even children having temper tantrums, crying fits, hard time breathing, distraught, which I'm not sure if there's a lot of the Hope Center staff here, but I mean, we have a children's program and a lot of children have experienced trauma as well. So at the Hope Center, I'm sure they have some type of grounding things. I know when I worked there for a little bit, like a couple of weeks, they have the Calm Cube, things like that, which is external things, right? So they have stuffed animals, sensory stuff, which is really smart. I wish we almost could do that here with adults, like have a Calm Cube in the corner of each group room or something. But teaching the children that the grounding techniques is going to help them in the future as they're adults. All right, and then the next one. Perfect. So active grounding practice, I think, so it says educate our clients on safety, safe coping and grounding techniques frequently. It's almost daily. I think this would be great. I try to do it. I kind of, not the best at it. I almost just do a meditation when I have like nothing else to do, like a 5-minute meditation, but to make it more grounding based would be beneficial for the client. So this is meaning it's present focused, it's here and now. Some of those guided meditations you find on YouTube, it's like makes them think into the future. What are your goals? But to remember the difference, grounding is the here and now. It's externally focused, it's physical, real, and outside of self. And it's concrete. So categories of real things, such as muscle tense release and calming images. And then how do you measure if the grounding worked is you use a rating scale. You ask them, okay, so you ask them before 1 through 10, how are you feeling? Do the grounding, ask them 1 through 10, how are they feeling, or 1 through 5, whatever scale you want. I actually was just with staff, not to like call you out, but when we were working with a specific client, like, I don't know, I think it was last week. And when I was sitting in there, we were about to call this client's PO who were having like a very difficult time, and the client's super upset for like very valid reasons. Steph actually used a grounding practice using her like buzzers before we called. So it wasn't like right during the call, we hurried and grounded her, right? Because that's not realistic. So Steph did, I think you did do the rating scale as well with her. And then you did the grounding and talked it through and then asked her how she feels. And then we called and it went so smooth. If we can incorporate more of that, not even with big issues, but just before group, right? And ground, or after group and ground would be really beneficial. And I've mentioned this with clients too and asked them their perspective. And some of them, you say, yeah, let's do meditation because they just want to like close their eyes and kind of sleep for a second. But truthfully, at least in every meditation time I have done, there's at least one who does use it. And if it works for them, I'd say to keep doing it as much as you can. And then the next slide. Okay, so we're gonna do it as a group. We're gonna do the, it's the muscle tense one. So don't feel awkward. I'm not gonna stare at you guys as you do this. But keep your cameras on if you can. And this is just, I've actually done this one a couple times with the clients. It's pretty simple. It's how to relax your body. So I'm just gonna read it. I'm gonna guide us through this. And I'm gonna try to go pretty slow, but try to participate the best you can because I want to see if you can notice a difference and maybe write your, like to rate yourself, write how you're feeling right now on a piece of paper, and then we'll do it and then see how you feel after. Okay, so here we go. Let's see. So it says, find a quiet place where you will be undisturbed for 15 minutes. We're gonna speed it up a little bit. And then locate a comfortable chair in which you can sit straight up with your feet on the floor. Sit comfortably in the chair. Pay close attention to how you feel as you begin. Notice any stiffness or tightness. Are there any aches or pains? Do you feel tense, frustrated, or keyed up? Pay attention to how you feel now because you're going to become more relaxed and you need a point of comparison. First, we will review what to do and then we will experience the relaxation exercise. All right, here we go. So while sitting quietly and comfortably, bend your right hand back at the wrist and briefly hold the tension. Keep holding it. And now relax. Now do the same thing with the left hand. Hold the tension. And relax. This time, tighten both hands into fists. Do it probably as hard as you can. And feel it spread up the arms toward the elbows and keep holding it. Now relax. Now bend both arms at the elbows and raise your hands up towards your shoulders. Tighten up the muscles in the biceps and hold it. And then relax. These 3 exercises have used the major muscles in the arms and started them relaxing. If you don't move them around, they will continue to relax, becoming more and more relaxed, and you can forget about them. Next, turn your attention to your face. For your forehead, raise your eyebrows up as far as you can and hold the tension. Now relax. For your eyes, close them and then squeeze the eyelids tightly together. Keep holding. Now relax and open your eyes. For your jaw, bite down and clamp your teeth together. Feel the tension along the jaw. And then relax. These 3 exercises have started the face relaxing. For your neck, just bend your head forward as if trying to touch your chin to your chest. Feel the tension along the back of the neck. And now relax. For your shoulders, raise them as high as you can and notice the tension. And then let them drop all at once and relax. That one's the best one. And then for your chest, you do 2 things at once. Take a deep breath and hold it while at the same time trying to touch your shoulder blades together by pulling your arms back. And hold it. Now relax. For your stomach, just pull in as if you're trying to touch your backbone with your stomach. And then relax. For your back, you arch out and away from the chair and you can feel the tension or feel tension along the spine. And then relax. With your feet flat on the floor, press down and feel the tension spread up the back of the legs. So this one you're pressing as hard as you can to the ground. And relax. For the right thigh, raise your leg up in front of you and feel the tension build. And then relax. Now do the same thing with the left leg. So raise your left leg in front of you and feel the tension build. Finally, for your feet, bend your toes up as if pointing towards the ceiling and feel the tension around the feet and ankles. And then relax. All right, you did it. So that was the full head to toe muscle tension, and that is a grounding exercise. So hopefully you guys feel better. Now write down how you feel. Hopefully it improved. That's the goal. Maybe it stressed you out more. And I think that is all of my part. Yay, Angela feels better. All right, you can go on to the next one, Kurt.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Alyssa, so you have about 5 minutes left. Alyssa.
Okay, perfect. I can talk really fast. Now that you're all relaxed, let me rile you up a little. A huge aspect that we talked about was creating and seeking safety. And Steph talked a little bit about safety when it comes to neurological safety. And so one of the things we talked about was when clients say they don't feel safe. It's really important for us to more investigate than shut down when they're vocalizing not feeling safe, to understand better how we can help them feel safe within the House of Hope environment, or even whatever environment they may be in. So it's so important to seek out what safety mechanisms, what safety behaviors they're doing, and what unsafe behaviors they are doing. Gabriella Grant, she was the one who trained us. She created a evaluation where clients would self-evaluate their unsafe behaviors, and you would get a score to evaluate what unsafe behaviors you're engaging in. So that was to like eating disorders, sleeping, there a whole list. I couldn't find it, but there's a whole list of ways that they can evaluate personal safety, and you can do so yourself. Another really important part of safety is consent and dissent. We talked for a really long time about people feeling comfortable to say yes or no. And if our clients don't feel like they can ever say no, is it truly ever consent? And it's so important for us to ask for consent when it comes to being trauma informed. So we should be asking more like, are you willing kind of questions, and not using I statements when talking with our clients, to remember to be that mirror like Lisa has talked to us about. Let's see. We also talked about rules are for safety and agreements are for protocol. And so we need to make sure we're focusing on the rules that are for our clients' safety, so their physical well-being and their mental well-being. And then the agreements are for protocols that just to help a program run and a community environment thrive. That's a few of the thoughts I had. Heather, I know you said a few things and I don't think I remembered it all. Did I cover what you wanted to?
Oh, we were talking about making sure they feel safe when they get here.
Yes.
If you want to talk about what you were saying.
Perfect. Thank you. That was a great reminder. So another way of people feeling safe. So part of our universal human need for safety is nutrition, medicine, the hierarchy of needs, right, for our own safety. So something I changed when meeting new clients is, as I would walk them downstairs, I'd be like, this is the entrance, like these are the doors we walk in and out of, so they know how to get in and out. And then I would walk them down to the bathroom, like this is the bathroom we use, and here is a drinking fountain, and this is where we eat. And so I try to help them feel a little bit more like understanding of where they needed to go to meet their basic needs, to help provide a bit of that safety. And then today we were talking about the transitions of just the first 24 hours of a client coming in. How can we create more safety, especially when it comes to them leaving treatment and then going home, to make that smooth and that the client feels safe and that they know where the bathroom is and they know who the staff is. And so really applying safety in the ways of our protocol, and to make sure clients really can know who to go to when they don't feel safe, and that we're willing to hear them and understand what kind of safe, if they're feeling unsafe, is it because they were triggered? Is it because of a past trauma? Trying to understand more why they are feeling unsafe. Is that good? Okay, there's your quick creating safety.
Thanks, Alyssa. So just to wrap things up, everybody, I just want to really thank this group, Heather and Alyssa and Steph and Julie, Amanda, Peter. Thank you. Thank you. I hope I got everybody. Thank you for doing this for us, and putting this training together. I can't imagine a more critical topic really in our line of work than trauma, being trauma informed, being, and all of us being on the same page. So you guys are rock stars. Just to finalize our day here, it's been a great training. Please fill out your training acknowledgement form that I emailed to you yesterday and send it to me. Why don't you go ahead and do that right now? You have about 3 or 4 minutes left in our time together. You could do that now, get it out of the way, and it's something that I won't have to come after you about. And you will get your trauma training credit, trauma training tutorial times. Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for everything. Bye.